Everyone who's ever gone up against Dexter Morgan has lived just long enough to regret it. No matter what they tried, fighting back, running, begging, Dexter almost always got them on his table. But a few killers came closer than anyone should be comfortable with. If luck had gone just a little bit differently, they might have taken Dexter out. So let's take a look at the killers in the Dexter universe who could have ended him, starting with his former girlfriend, Hannah McKay. Hannah McKay was a uniquely dangerous person. She was sly and conniving. She often got what she wanted, and she wasn't afraid to kill people to get it. If she had a conscience, Hannah was pretty good at hiding it. She started killing at a young age, started during a crime spree she and her boyfriend Wayne Randall went on when she was only 15. According to Dexter's forensic analysis, Hannah was actively involved in the killings and seemed to enjoy them. She stabbed at least one of the victims over and over, well past the point of death. If she had been an adult, she likely would have gotten life in prison once she and Randall were caught, but because she was only 15, she received a considerably lighter sentence of a few years in juvenile detention. She also flipped on Wayne and made everyone believe that the murders were all his idea and that she was just another victim in the entire ordeal. She was sick and manipulative. And as Hannah got older, her methods matured. She knew she couldn't just go around stabbing people to death and continue to get away with it. She started with rat poison and advanced to learning how to use obscure plants to poison her victims without anything being detected. Since her time with Wayne, Hannah killed at least 3 other people without any consequences. She started with a counselor who worked at the detention center she was sent to, killing him with rat poison because he was assaulting the girls in the facility. Next, she killed her own husband because he was pressuring her to abort their unborn child. After that, she killed the sickly, elderly woman who owned the plant nursery before her. She may have justified each of these kills in her own mind, but that doesn't make them right. But Hannah didn't kill because she thought it was right. She killed for convenience. Anyone in the way of her goals or desires was fair game to her. That, paired with the fact that she had gotten just so good at it, made her a greater threat than most of the people Dexter met. When Hannah wanted to stop the writing of a book about her crimes from being released, she killed the author. When she wanted Deb out of the way so she could be with Dexter, she tried to kill her too. And after Dexter had her sent to prison to protect Deb, she poisoned herself just enough to trigger a seizure and be sent to a hospital so she could escape. After she got out, she fled Miami for a little while, only to return and poison both Deb and Dexter. Dexter didn't even see it coming. Luckily, she didn't give either of them enough of the poison to do permanent damage, or she very easily could have killed both of them right then, but she didn't. She left Deb knocked out in her house and took Dexter before dumping his body on the side of the road. The poisoning was so effective that neither of them woke up until the next day. Hannah had all of the means, motive, and opportunity to kill Dexter. In reality, he had no reason to trust Hannah. She was a lying, manipulative sociopath who was more than capable of wiggling her way out of even the toughest binds. Dexter ended up abandoning her and Harrison, so she wouldn't get the chance again, but it's very obvious that Hannah McKay could have killed Dexter at almost any moment, and by the time he realized what was happening, it would have been far too late. Kurt Caldwell is another adversary who had a good chance to kill Dexter. Kurt wasn't just another killer crossing Dexter's path. He was a patient and calculating hunter with a lot of power in Iron Lake. He was a master manipulator, and no one, not even Dexter, knew he was a serial killer for most of the season. He may not have known exactly who Dexter was or what he did before he landed in Iron Lake, but Kurt knew one thing. Dexter was responsible for the death of his son, Matt Caldwell. With that knowledge, Kurt had more than enough motive to kill Dexter, and that made him very dangerous. The idea of Dexter killing Matt fueled a revenge campaign more personal than anything Dexter had dealt with since he faced off with Isaac Serco. Kurt wasn't only interested in legal justice, he wanted Dexter to suffer. That clarity of purpose gave him a level of determination few villains ever matched. Then there's the factor of Dexter's physical ability. In New Blood, Dexter wasn't the same unstoppable predator he was in Miami. He was older, a bit slower, and out of practice after a decade of isolation. His instincts weren't as sharp. His routines weren't as controlled, and Kurt capitalized on that for sure. Dexter wasn't an apex predator anymore. He was vulnerable in ways that made him a much easier target than he had ever been before. This was made clear when Kurt pulled off one of the most surprising accomplishments in the entire series by successfully having Dexter kidnapped. Almost no one has ever managed to do that. It's pretty much Kurt Caldwell and Stan Liddy. Using his hired muscle, Elric, in perfect timing, Kurt had Dexter abducted, restrained, and delivered to him so he could witness him killing Harrison. Dexter managed to get away from Elric, killed him, and save Harrison in the nick of time, but with that attempt, Kurt was very close to being the person who took Dexter out. And Kurt didn't stop there. After the kidnapping failed, he only escalated his methods. He burned down Dexter's cabin. That's already a huge power play and totally insane, but the point was not only to destroy Dexter's home, Kurt set the house on fire specifically to kill him and Harrison. Kurt actually waited outside, rifle ready, planning to shoot both of them the second they came out to escape the fire. If Dexter and Harrison had been home that night, Kurt would have gunned them down as soon as they ran out of the fire without hesitation. The plan was already in motion. The shot was lined up. Between the kidnapping, the arson, and the carefully laid execution plan, Kurt Caldwell almost had Dexter beaten at multiple points. Kurt had the motive, the resources, and the advantage of facing a slower, aging Dexter. In another timeline, Kurt Caldwell may not just be one of Dexter's greatest villains, he could have also been the one who finally killed him. And he isn't the only one. Arthur Mitchell, the Trinity Killer, was a one-of-a-kind type of threat. He had been killing across the country for over 3 decades without ever even being suspected. In fact, no one even knew there was a serial killer to hunt in the first place. Arthur's murders were never even connected to one another. As a result, he was able to travel the country freely and amass over 250 kills with more planned. Frank Lundy was the only member of law enforcement who thought the Trinity Killer was real and worth investigating. Without his incredibly keen detective skills, it's unlikely the Trinity would have ever even been investigated, let alone caught, not by the authorities or by Dexter. At first glance, the thought of Trinity taking Dexter down may seem ridiculous. He isn't in great shape, and yeah, he's pretty old. Someone in his condition having to try and physically subdue Dexter is laughable. When they met, Trinity was in his late 60s and Dexter was in his mid 30s. Arthur wasn't a small guy, but he was hardly in any condition to take on a seasoned predator half his age and trained in jiu-jitsu. If it came to blows, or if Dexter was even suspicious that he was in danger, Trinity wouldn't stand a chance. But the problem is that Arthur was likely already aware of that. Because he thought that Arthur could teach him a thing or two in the area of being a serial killer with a happy family, Dexter started hanging out with him more and more under the alias of Kyle Butler. Dexter was planning to learn as much as he could from Arthur and then kill him once he was done. As a part of his genius plan, Dexter willingly placed himself in Arthur's path all the time. Dexter showed up while Arthur was shopping, while he was attending church, and even showed up to his home without being invited. These were the times he left himself vulnerable to being killed by Trinity. He usually does a good job of hiding it in front of strangers, but Arthur has a hair-trigger temper. He can be irritated to the point of boiling rage by the slightest provocation. He snapped at a waitress because his omelet came out incorrectly. He called a child's ice cream flavor repulsive with a smile after it got on his sleeve. And he berated his entire family on Thanksgiving just because none of them said they were thankful for him. The point is that the Trinity Killer could have gotten irritated with Dexter, or should I say Kyle, at any time, and that could have been the end for him. Because he was using an alias and because he thought Trinity only killed during his 3-part ritual, Dexter's guard was likely a little lower than usual. He knew that Arthur was a killer, but Arthur only knew Dexter to be a recent divorcee looking for advice and support during a dark time. But if Trinity was determined enough or lost control, he could have taken advantage of Dexter's lowered guard and attacked him at any time. Dexter didn't know it early on, but Arthur was incredibly abusive to his family. They were all under his control and would go along with anything he said or did to avoid his wrath. By frequenting Arthur's home so often, Dexter constantly put himself at risk. If Trinity caught wind of the fact that Dexter was tricking him, or if he even just got too agitated by him at some point, he could have snapped. If Arthur killed Dexter at his own home, he could cover it up and force his family to help him do it. He could have claimed it was self-defense and made his family lie for him to keep him from being charged or investigated. When they were in his house, Arthur and Dexter were surrounded by a number of things that Trinity could have used to bludgeon someone to death like he is used to. They spent time in Trinity's garage, which had easily accessible tools that could be used for that as well. Dexter turns his back for a second, thinking Arthur isn't onto him at all, and ends up with a framing hammer to the skull. Dexter is pretty strong, but I don't think he survived getting his brains beaten out. He also went deep into the woods alone with Trinity. Dexter was considering killing him there, but who's to say what would have happened if Arthur had been planning to do the same? No witnesses, makeshift murder supplies in his van, and years of practice killing people and getting away with it. You add the fact that it would be an attack Dexter may not see coming, and it's not hard to see that under the right circumstances, Arthur Mitchell could have most definitely killed Dexter and gotten away with it. Dexter screwed up royally when he killed Victor Baskov. For him, it started off as a pretty routine kill with probable cause and a standard vetting process. Victor was responsible for at least 2 murders. First, he killed a stripper, Kaja Soroka, and soon after he killed Detective Mike Anderson after he found Kaja's body in the trunk of Victor's car. That was enough for Dexter to target him, but maybe he should have just left this one to the proper authorities. After all, the police were very committed to finding the person responsible for Mike's death. Mike was a cop, and that meant that his murder was taken very personally by the Miami Metro Police Department. They were aggressively pursuing the case with no signs of letting up. But most importantly, had Dexter left Victor to the police, he would have been able to avoid landing in Isaac Serko's crosshairs. Victor wasn't just a random guy on the street. He was a member of the Koshka Brotherhood, a powerful Ukrainian gang with international reach. More importantly, he was the lover of Isaac Serko, and Isaac was one of the top bosses in their mafia organization. When Victor didn't return home from the States as scheduled, Isaac knew something was wrong. He flew to America personally to get to the bottom of it. He started taking out anyone he thought to be even remotely related to Victor's disappearance, desperately looking for answers. He was merciless on his hunt for the killer, asking very few questions before killing anyone who turned out to be a dead end. Isaac even had a patsy set up to take the fall from Mike's death so they wouldn't keep looking for Victor, and he would be free to continue hunting for his killer without any interruptions. Eventually, Isaac's search led him to Dexter's boat, and then to Dexter. Dexter told him why he killed Victor, and Isaac let him know that he wasn't going to stop telling Dexter until he was dead. He wasn't pulling any punches either. He almost killed Dexter in broad daylight while he was picking up his usual donuts for the office. Isaac shot directly into the donut shop multiple times, and he would have hit Dexter the first time if Dexter hadn't stooped down to pick up his keys at just the right second. Dexter would have been dead then and there if he had dropped his keys a second earlier or retrieved them a second later. Isaac was a trained assassin with a huge chip on his shoulder and an undying vendetta. Remember, this is a man who walked into a bar full of enemy gang members all alone, no security or henchmen to protect him, and killed all 8 of them in less than 5 minutes. If he can do that much damage on his own against an entire group of men all looking to kill him, imagine what he could have done to Dexter if he ever got the chance. The only reason Isaac stopped pursuing Dexter is because he ended up needing Dexter's help to take out a couple of hitmen that the Koshkas sent after him. He saw how efficiently Dexter killed others and protected himself, and knew how slick Koshka assassins could be. Isaac knew he would have a better chance of surviving their attacks if Dexter helped him take them out. Once the hitmen were taken care of, Isaac agreed to a truce with Dexter, figuring that they were even since Dexter did just help save his life. But without that truce, Dexter would have been in danger constantly until one of them killed the other. Isaac was more than capable of killing Dexter himself. He could handle hand-to-hand combat, he had no issue using a gun, he did not mind getting his hands dirty, and he didn't shy away from killing in open spaces. Isaac already proved that he could tell Dexter without ever being noticed when he surprised him at the donut shop. Dexter would have to remain on high alert at all times, guard his sister, Harrison, Hannah, basically anyone he cared about, to stop Isaac from using them as bait or just straight up killing them to get to him. Isaac had already abducted Hannah to coerce Dexter into helping him kill the hitmen who were after him. If he still wanted to take Dexter out to avenge Victor, Isaac would have been relentless, and all it would take for him to pull it off was a slight mistake or delay on Dexter's part. It's a good thing they had to team up, because otherwise, it's not really clear how or if Dexter would have gotten the upper hand on Isaac, and he isn't the only one who almost sent Dexter to an early grave. When we talk about Dexter's most dangerous enemies, Travis Marshall, better known as the Doomsday Killer, is often overshadowed by flashier villains like Trinity. But make no mistake, Travis Marshall came closer to killing Dexter than almost anyone else in the entire series. And if a few things had gone differently, Dexter might not have survived season 6 at all. Let's start with the moment that really set Travis apart. Travis's decision to use wormwood. Travis was operating under his delusional worldview that he was a prophet meant to spur on the end of days. To accomplish his mission, he orchestrated a literal chemical attack aimed directly at Miami Metro after kidnapping Sergeant Batista. His plan wasn't just to kill 1 or 2 people with this attack, he planned to wipe out the entire department. And this wasn't just an empty threat. Travis prepared the device and arranged the delivery method by using one of his brainwashed disciples to carry it out. And he nearly succeeded. The only reason it didn't work was because Dexter intercepted the attack at the last minute, saving everyone and being the only person to get any of the wormwood in his system. Had Travis's timing had been slightly different, Dexter's entire world would have been erased in a cloud of toxins. And it was the effects of the wormwood that led to his next most successful attempt. When Dexter was weak from the poison, Travis truly almost ended him in what he described as the Lake of Fire tableau. He injected Dexter with his own M99, and after capturing Dexter, Travis abducted him, planning to use him as the sacrifice to God required in that stage of the prophecy. Dexter was drugged, bound, and placed on a burning boat before being left for dead with no way back to shore. Still disoriented from the M99 and wormwood and surrounded by flames, there was pretty much nothing Dexter could do. And realistically, Dexter should have died there. He swam beneath the flames to escape the ring of fire, but even then, he was in the middle of a large body of water with nothing but a piece of boat to cling onto. Even he thought he was going to die then, and Dexter only survived because of something that had nothing to do with him at all. A passing boat just happened to spot him floating in the water and drag him aboard. Without that tiny stroke of chance, the story of Dexter Morgan would have been over. What really makes Travis Marshall uniquely dangerous to this combination of fanaticism and unpredictability is that he didn't stalk Dexter like Isaac or study him like his brother Brian did. Travis acted on random visions, symbolism, and apocalyptic urgency that made him impossible to reason with and made his next moves extremely difficult to anticipate. Dexter's usual understanding of motive and ritual couldn't protect him here. Travis behaved according to something completely detached from reality. And in his reality, Dexter was simply another obstacle he had to overcome to bring God's plan to fruition. Between the use of the wormwood, the near perfect execution of the Lake of Fire, and his unhinged determination, Travis had a real chance of being the one to kill Dexter. Dexter's survival was a fluke, if fate had been even slightly less generous. As surprising as it may be, Travis Marshall would have been the man who finally ended Dexter Morgan. When it comes to the Dexter universe, few people were as expertly positioned to kill Dexter as his own brother, Brian Moser. Not only did Brian share Dexter's childhood trauma, but he also understood Dexter's instincts, habits, and rituals better than any other adversary. And if Brian had wanted to end Dexter, he had almost every advantage lined up in his favor to make it happen. First, let's talk about access. Brian proved multiple times that he could break into Dexter's apartment without leaving a trace. He snuck in to leave clues, rearrange objects, and psychologically mess with him and his refrigerator long before Dexter had any idea what was going on. This wasn't dumb luck either. Brian understood Dexter's routines, work hours, and blind spots. If he wanted to ambush Dexter at home, he had already demonstrated he could slide into his DMs undetected pretty much whenever he felt like it. Brian also had a working knowledge of medical methods of killing. We saw this clearly when he targeted their biological father, Joe Driscoll, whose death was staged to look like a natural heart attack. Brian knew how to use medications to incapacitate or eliminate someone without raising immediate suspicion. That level of skill is especially crucial because Dexter himself relies on that kind of a solution, using M99 specifically to subdue victims. And here's the kicker. Brian was completely familiar with Dexter's kill ritual, including how and when he administered the M99. That means Brian had both the knowledge and the practical understanding necessary to turn that method back on Dexter at the drop of a hat. And let's not forget Brian's physical ability. Although he appeared calm, quiet, and controlled to the public, he was an experienced killer with years of practice, capable of moving victims' bodies, staging scenes, and overpowering targets. And when he did confront Dexter, he successfully moved his body after incapacitating him with M99. That alone is a feat only a couple of his opponents have ever managed to pull off. That alone proves Brian had the physical ability and tactical awareness to end Dexter's life if he really wanted to. So with the access, the medical knowledge, the experience, and the familiarity with Dexter's routines, why didn't he kill him? Put simply, Brian didn't want Dexter dead. He wanted him by his side. Brian was obsessed with getting his brother back in his life, and he saw himself as the only person in the world who could truly understand Dexter. Killing him would have been counterproductive to everything Brian had been trying to accomplish for years. Brian may have killed Dexter if he absolutely had to, but in his mind, even after murdering so many innocent people, that would probably be the ultimate tragedy. Instead, he just wanted to break Dexter's ties to his fake, normal life and eliminate anything that stood between them. But Brian's lack of a willingness to kill his brother should not be mistaken for lack of ability. In reality, Brian Moser had plenty of methods and opportunities to kill his brother. The only reason he didn't was because, for the first time in his life, Brian saw someone he thought was worth keeping alive. Do you think that these killers actually had a chance of taking Dexter out? Leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below. And if you like this analysis, check out our video breaking down every villain from Dexter. Remember to slash that subscribe button before it slashes you, and thanks for watching.